Welcome to Mission Talk. Your host is Natoya Maitland.
Welcome to another episode of Mission Talk, where we continue to follow the happenings of our Adventist youth around the world. Joining us today will be Mark Maitland, and he will be sharing with us his journey into Adventism. Hi, Mark. Welcome to Mission Talk. And how are you today?
I'm very well, thanks. It's good to be here.
And of course, nice to have you on set with us. Now, tell us, how long have you been an Adventist?
Well, 15 and a half years now.
And what inspired you to become an Adventist?
Strangely enough, I became an Adventist out of trying to prove that Adventism was wrong, or was not really something that, actually that the Sabbath was not relevant. So out of trying to prove that from the Bible, I ended up becoming an Adventist.
Wow, that's quite interesting. Can you expound on that, really?
In 1998, thereabouts, the last part of 1998, I visited Kingston for my birthday, and I remember my cousins at the time invited me to church. I was reluctant in coming to church, and when I finally came, however, I heard the preacher at that time speaking about the Sabbath and its relevance and the commandments, and saying that, in keeping all the commandments except the Sabbath, then you are still in a position where you are not keeping the commandments. But all along I grew up hearing that the commandment was nailed to the cross, and so I was kind of in a, as they say, a quandrum. And then I started, because I wanted, one, to clear my conscience, and secondly, to prove that I don't necessarily have to attend church on a Sabbath to be a Christian. And so in that now I started studying the scriptures, starting in the New Testament, of course, because I know the Old Testament was basically about the Sabbath. And in studying the New Testament, I realized that at every account, in every stage, Jesus, Paul, all the disciples really kept the seventh-day Sabbath. And so it was really a fight to take up this new belief.
Wow, so you would say pretty much that in studying the Word, you found new light, and that, in a sense, led you to Adventism. So after 15 years in this movement, are you having any regrets about becoming an Adventist?
I have none whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I tell you, in deciding to become an Adventist, it was sort of a to and fro, because I used to attend a Baptist church. And what used to happen at the time, on Saturdays, I'll be going to church. And on Sundays, I'll be going to church. Until all my friends started calling me Saturday, Sunday. And then I realized that I had to make a decision. And through prayer and fasting, because I was scared about the friends that I would lose, and some real close friends I would lose, and the companionship that I would lose. And through this prayer, then I finally made the ultimate decision. I said, you know what? If I choose God, then God will choose the people for me.
But Mark, 15 years ago, that sounds as if, it would have been in the prime of your youth. What activities does your church provide that keeps you engaged and active and still a part of this Adventist movement?
One of the first things that happened when I joined the church was that there was the AY leader at the time, a man called Edson Johnson, who realized that in visiting, I wasn't even baptized at the time, the type of questions I asked, in his words, I had something to offer. And so he drafted me as a part of the AY group then. And without even being baptized, I was privy to some of the meetings, and I was assisting to plan programs. So much so that when I baptized the 31st of December 2000, many people thought that I was baptized from 1998. And what I find is that when you find something that you like in the church, it will keep you in the church. And that's one of the things that I'd wish that we would do with especially our new converts. Try to get them attached to a department, something that they love, And if you are attached to something that you love, then you will, automatically be fond of coming. And then, in so doing, I found friends there. And there were friends that I looked forward to meeting with. So that was what really kept me. And trust me, people think that Christianity is not fun. I tell you, as a fun lover, if it was boring, I'd be gone long ago.
Okay. What are some of the specific mission activities that you actually do or find yourself engaged in as it relates to spreading the Adventist message? Now that you have found it and now have a better appreciation of it, what are you doing to help others or to introduce others to Adventism?
Well, at first, we would do what the church or the AY or personal ministry was doing, which is normally street meetings, tract distribution, so on and so forth. But what I find is that when you begin to grow in the Word and know what is expected of you, you begin to feel as if just these activities are not enough for you. I give an example of one thing that I used to do. I started out doing bus ministry. Another colleague and I, friend from church, we printed some prayer cards, just like business cards, with our contact numbers and names on it. And I would travel from Harborview some mornings to Kingston and back on a minibus, doing bus ministry and handing out these prayer cards so that if individuals want to talk about something or they want us to pray with them about something or they have questions about the faith, they could call us. And some of the interesting things I find, though, is that individuals, as I would say, would want to know God, but not necessarily want to come to the God that they want to know. And sometimes it is a sort of, as you would say now, discouragement, because you feel that, boy, your efforts are not bearing any fruits. But then we are reminded that, as the word said, Paul planted, Apollos water, but the increase is God's. And we have had other activities which we would do with the youth department, both locally and conference-wide. And those are the activities that has really kept me going. What I find is that the more activities you're involved in, and the more people know you and can associate you with church, is the harder it has become for you to backslide. And I think that's one of the things that has really kept me in church. Doing these activities, people know you and associate you with the church. You think of all these individuals who you're going to disappoint. And sometimes when your back is against the wall and the whole world comes crumbling on you and you feel like you want to give up, these testimonies that you have, these individuals, actually help to propel you to go on.
Right. So basically, from what you're saying, it seems as if just becoming a Christian, just becoming an Adventist is not the end of it. But getting yourself involved in mission work, both locally and in wherever communities that you may find yourself in, also helps to maintain your spiritual growth and spiritual walk as a young person.
Exactly, because what you find is that when you have become baptized, you're merely introduced to the church. But when you begin to study the beliefs of the church, and when you begin to you're incorporated in the actual church itself, you realize that the real aim of the church is not just or the real aim of the church is not just should be about the numbers, but it's about the mission that comes with being a part of the church.
So, have you had any negative experience while ministering to others out there in the field?
It is funny that I am trying to recall what I deem negative impact.
Any responses that would make you question whether or not, if this is really worth it, or should I really go out and try to get others to be a part of this ministry? Anything that discourages you? Because sometimes, young persons, depending on their interaction with others, may become disheartened or discouraged and feel like, this is not really worth it.
What I find intriguing is that when you approach individuals outside of the church, most of them are receptive. And most of them find it fascinating that a young person would be doing evangelism. What I find, on the other hand, though, is that the discouragement would come from within, which is funny. I give you an experience. I remember when I just got baptized and I was looking for encouragement in a couple of people. Funny thing is, instead of encouragement, what was said to me was more than enough for me to leave the church, because I was saying to myself, if this is what my potential brothers and sisters think of me, then it's not worth coming to church.
But there's something. You didn't allow those negative comments or those negative impressions to stop you from doing your role in terms of ministering to others.
And I think that was because of what happened in the months and the year leading up to my baptism, where somebody saw that there was a potential, took me in, put me as a part of the youth group, and started nurturing what was there. So basically, I had roots there before I was actually baptized. So that was what really kept me there.
So Mark, tell us, would you encourage other young persons to be a part of missionary and being active in terms of spreading the word to others?
That's what I do daily.
Okay. You seem to be having it quite easy as a Christian, no issues, or do you? Do you have any struggles? Do you have any challenge as part of your Christian journey?
I am yet to meet a Christian who hasn't had challenges. And one of the greatest challenges that I have had, and I think this is the greatest challenge I have had, is when at work. And funny enough, that challenge came to me through a former Adventist, somebody who used to be a former youth leader in the church. That's where my greatest challenge came from, because they wanted me to work on Saturdays, and I said that I would not work on Saturdays based on the fact that I worship on Sabbath. And he said to me distinctly, if it was up to him, no Adventist would be working in that institution. And I said it to somebody else, and the person was in disbelief, because that person said to me that when they were younger, that very individual used to be a youth leader in the church. And from then, there were many, many, many instances where trials came via that one person. And I mean, at one point, there was a time I sat down and I made the room very dark, because I wanted God to walk in so I could ask him some questions. And while I was there questioning God and asking him to show himself, I was brought to the scripture that Paul wrote, yea, and all who would live godly in Christ Jesus must suffer persecution. And I would say to every Adventist young person, ensure that, separate and apart from what is in the quarterly that you're supposed to read, you read the Bible, get acquainted with the Bible, because sometimes these very scriptures are means of encouragement for you.
So Mark, you mentioned something very interesting just now about how a former Adventist youth leader could have potentially discouraged you, right? As a youth leader yourself, how do you manage that? How do you manage how you impact other young people that you may be called upon to lead or interact with on a daily basis?
As they say, experience is the best teacher. And I guess out of seeing or out of knowing what could have happened to me because of a former youth leader, it has guided me in my response to youth, or how I deal with situations concerning other youth. Because the truth is, whether or not we believe it, it is easier to turn off an individual than to get somebody to agree with what you believe. And I think, based on experiences that I have had, or I've seen others have, I have used those to guide me. And of course, prayerfully, because even when you think that you're doing something to the best of your ability, unless you ask God for wisdom and for guidance, then what seems okay to you can be distasteful to somebody else, and you don't know who you might turn off in the process.
Okay. As I reflect in terms of all the gadgets that young people have now to entertain themselves and keep themselves occupied, do you find that it is more challenging to witness the young people in the 21st century?
No. I think the introduction of technology and these gadgets have made it oh so easy to witness. There's a young guy in my class, because right now I deal with the new converts, and he has a form of disability. And what is interesting is that on a weekly basis, when we are doing the mission report and we are marking the logs, number of missionary impact, this person who has a walking disability makes, when we are given the report, I find that he does the most missionary contacts. And I ask him, how do you do it? Because the first week I asked, he said 765. And I said, how do you impact 765 persons? He says, all the people on my Facebook page and in WhatsApp, I witness to them. Honestly, I felt a little ashamed. But then I realized that, listen, these things are at your disposal and we can use them for good. I was so proud of him, but at the same time, I was so ashamed, because I'm beginning to think now, how many people I have on my Facebook page and how much do I present Jesus to them?
So there you have it, audience. Technology that is not so seemingly bad, but can be used to even enhance our mission journey. Well, viewers, there you have it, another enlightening and engaging program. Join us again next week when we sit to talk with another young mind doing wonders for Christ.